That's better. All right. Committee's all here. Let's get started. So I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. The procedures for the meeting, as per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. I'll now ask the recording secretary to conduct the roll of the members present.
I will now call the roll of the committee. Chair, Councillor Bob Stone.
Here.
Kenneth Donald. Kenneth Donald.
Here. Sorry, mute button problem.
Councillor Jason Fitzgerald.
Present.
Helena Renwick.
Here.
Brandon Stapleton.
Present.
All right. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated October 14, 2020 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Do any members have any pecuniary interests on the files today? All right, seeing none. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Brandon Stapleton, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated September 16, 2020, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or their representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. Please note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by the committee prior to making a decision on the applications. If you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. And to begin with, Jasmine is going to speak to the Appleyard and Gerhardt application.
Thank you, Chair Stone, members of committee, and members of the public present with us today. The subject property is located at 339 Brunel Road. The lot is designated rural and zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to construct two additions to an existing dwelling. A minor variance is required to designate the easterly lot line as the front lot line, reduce the required front yard setback from 12 meters to 7.7 meters, and the northerly side yard setback from 5 meters to 2.9 meters, and to recognize the lot as having no frontage on a public street. As shown on the sketch attached to the report, the larger addition would extend the rear wall of the dwelling along the existing plane within the required side yard setback. The smaller addition would be constructed within the required front yard setback. Due to the orientation of the dwelling and the lot's topography, meeting the required setbacks would be difficult without significant design or grade changes. However, the proposed additions appear to be in keeping with the character of the surrounding area and to satisfy the official plan tests for additions to existing non-complying structures. Because the lot doesn't have direct road frontage, staff have included provisions to recognize the easterly lot line as the front lot line and to exempt the lot from the requirement to be located on a municipally maintained public road. As the lot has an established legal access from Brunel Road and the proposed additions will serve to promote the maintenance and upkeep of an already developed property, the intent of the official plan is being maintained. The application was circulated in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. No objections have been received. The chief building official did note that the driveway would need to be in conformance with section 4.9 of the Huntsville building bylaw to address fire access requirements, which will be dealt with through the building permit review. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments about the application.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if they are connected by telephone to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm that there are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on and ask for the public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to the application?
And again, I'm seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. All right, then we'll move on to committee members. And do you have any comments or questions about the application? All right, then I'll read the motion. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that minor variance application A23-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 2.102, 3.19.1, and 5.2.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to designate the easterly lot line as the front lot line, reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 12 meters to 7.7 meters, and reduce the minimum required northerly side yard setback from 5 meters to 2.9 meters, and recognize the lot as having no frontage on a municipally maintained public road, all to permit the construction of 2 additions to an existing family dwelling only. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. All right, Jasmine, you're going to speak to the next application, the Wilkie and Johnson.
Thank you. The subject property is located at 3894 South Portage Road. The lot is designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential 1. The applicant is proposing to install a new floating dock to replace an existing dock, which has a greater projection. As there were no record of approvals for the existing dock, a minor variance is required to increase the permitted projection of a dock from 15 meters to 18.3 meters. Due to their location adjacent to the water's edge, shoreline structures typically can't be screened, so the zoning bylaw contains standards to control their massing. The proposed floating dock will be a low-profile structure, and with the exception of the increased projection, will meet all other requirements of the zoning bylaw with respect to setbacks and lot coverage. Further, site plan control will be utilized to require ongoing maintenance of shoreline vegetation. As a result, the dock would have minimal visual impact when viewed from the water and appears to be in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and to the Lake of Bays Association. No objections were received. The application appears to conform to the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or the representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if connected by telephone to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I do see one hand raised.
Then let's have them in.
A reminder that during your transition, your video panel will be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee member panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for a few minutes. I appreciate the presentation that Jasmine's given in summary. My client, David Wilkie, bought the property in 2001, and when he purchased the property, there was a dock that extended 18.6 meters out into the lake. It was really more of a compilation of a series of docks that were seemed to be scattered together over the years. Initially on a I'll forget that word. I can't. A crib foundation in the first section, but the because Mr. Wilkie wasn't able to demonstrate that the dock was legally constructed because it was there before he purchased the property, we agreed with staff that the best thing to do was to get a minor variance to make sure that everything was clearly defined as legal. What's proposed now is a dock that would extend 18.3 meters, so it's a foot shorter than the existing dock. My client really wanted to replace the existing dock because, again, it was it was an old dock and in various states of repair, disrepair, and he wanted to purchase a new system from NIDOC. So that was the plan. The order was placed, and it was only after the order was placed that somebody realized that this part of Lake of Bays, the setback requirement is in Huntsville. The extension is in Huntsville, so it's only 15 meters, whereas in the Lake of Bays portion of it could go out 20 meters. So we made the application. We think it's all in order. The reason why we are requiring a dock at 61 feet in length is that Mr. Wilkie has a sailboat, and he needs about 4 feet of water to be able to accommodate the keel on the boat. So when there's any wave action or anything like that, the boat will bob up and down a bit, of course, and he needs that sort of depth for the keel. So we're actually bringing it in about a foot. We established that at the end of the dock at 61 feet. There's upwards of 4.2 meters or 4.2 feet of water, and more typically where the keel is, it'd be closer to 4 feet. So it serves his purpose nicely and allows him to dock both his sailboat and his power boat. And I agree with Jasmine's assessment that the proposal does comply with all the tests. And the dock is not out of character with other docks in the area. If you look at figure 1 in the staff report, you'll see that there are a couple other docks in the immediate area that are much further. The water is generally shallow near the shoreline, but in this case, we're going out again far enough to hit 4 feet. So I'm available if you have any questions, and I appreciate your consideration today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Mr. Simpson to stay with us while we ask for any public input. Is there anyone of the public that would like to speak to this application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if they are connected by phone to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I'm seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? Helena Renwick.
Question out of interest sake. Mr. Simpson said that in Lake of Bays, the extension could be 20 meters out. Is that typically how far, is that the maximum a dock could be in Lake of Bays? And in Huntsville, it was 18 meters? But it's more for my interest to say, how far can you go out into the water?
So in Huntsville, the maximum projection is typically 15 meters. There are provisions that would allow you to go out further due to water depth. But I believe Mr. Simpson has indicated that in the Lake of Bays Township portion of Lake of Bays, it is actually a 20-meter projection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll read the motion. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A24-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.18.6 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P. To increase the permitted projection of a dock from 15 meters to 18.3 meters. Any final comments or questions of committee? if we can go back to the other screen so I can see committee members. Thanks very much. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Wayne. All right, we got a new player. Curtis is coming in to speak to the Granger application.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. The subject property is located at 11 Christchurch Street. The lot is designated community residential and zoned residential 1. This application has been submitted to identify the subject lot as buildable. A minor variance is required to recognize the existing road frontage of 10 meters as meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw, whereas 29 meters is typically required for privately serviced lots. The community settlement areas represent areas of Huntsville where intensification, redevelopment, and regeneration are encouraged to strengthen and support the vitality, growth, and prosperity of historic community settlements. Although the subject lot does not meet the required frontage, it appears that it could be developed in keeping with the character of the surrounding community and would be able to represent an appropriate example of infill development. The constraint mapping has identified areas of steep slopes abutting the western and northeastern lot lines. The official plan requires that development be set back from areas of exhibiting steep slopes or active erosion. Further, the plan generally requires that natural vegetation be substantially retained on areas with steep slopes to ensure development, with the exception of the driveway, does not occur within the constraint area. Staff have included a condition to require increased setbacks and vegetation retention in the areas of steep slopes. The retention of vegetation in this setback will also serve to mitigate visual impacts of the proposed lot when viewed from the neighboring properties. The subject lands also appear to be within 1,000 meters of a municipal wellhead. Section D of the official plan states that development within municipal infrastructure setbacks shall only be permitted if the District of Muskoka is satisfied that the proposal will have no detrimental impact on the municipal systems. In this case, staff have included a condition to prohibit development and site alteration within the 1,000 meter infrastructure setback. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. One letter was received from an abutting owner raising concerns with stormwater drainage coming from the subject lot and potential erosion due to site alteration. To address this, staff have included a condition to require an engineered drainage plan and site mitigation plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. And then we actually just got another letter this morning, and it really, the applicant, the abutting owner raised concerns just regarding future changes to the roadway, Morgan Street. In this case, there is a section of municipal road that was sold to Mr. Granger back in 2004. However, their concern was just making sure that they, should they choose to connect to the municipal road, that they could in the future, and that nothing about this application will change that. They also had concerns. They have a water line that runs down Morgan Street and across Muskoka 10 towards Mary Lake, and they just wanted to ensure that no alterations to the roadway would occur that would compromise their water line. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do in terms of conditions that could address that. However, in talking with the concerned resident, I just gave them assurances that there is a proper process for alterations to municipal right-of-ways, and that would include vetting your application through appropriate town departments who could identify the presence of that water line and make anyone doing work in that right-of-way aware. So. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
All right, thank you. I'll ask the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if connected by phone to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I'm seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Any members of the public that would like to speak to the application?
And again, members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if connected by phone. And Chair Stone, I'm seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I guess this question is for Curtis. Curtis, you made a mention of a letter received this morning from another concerned neighbor. Can you just tell me the location of that neighbor?
Of course. With your permission, Chair Stone, it might be easiest if I just pull it up on the map.
Sure.
Okay, bear with me. I'm just going to share screen. There we go. Can everybody see the map on the screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to zoom in here. The concerned neighbor was located in this location here. So their concern was about maintaining access onto the municipal right-of-way if they, should they choose to put a driveway to connect to Morgan Street. In this case, the municipal right-of-way actually runs past their property. So basically in this location here. And they had a water line that I understand comes out and then down Morgan Street. Excuse me, Chair Stone. Down Morgan Street that crosses Muskoka 10 and heads down towards Mary Lake. So they were concerned that any alterations to this municipal right-of-way could compromise their water line.
Councillor Fitzgerald, follow up?
Thank you, Curtis. So that right-of-way, or the right-of-way, sorry, their frontage goes between lot 81 and lot 655 or 665 and out to Morgan Street. Is that correct?
Through you, Councillor Stone, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
There we go.
Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll read the resolution. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A25-2020 HTE be approved, the purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.3.1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P, to recognize the existing road frontage of 10 meters as sufficient to allow development, conditional on a new civic address number off Morgan Street being assigned by the town, an entrance permit being obtained from the town of Huntsville, the owner entering into an agreement pursuant to section 45(9.1) of the Planning Act to prohibit development and site alteration within 1,000 meters of the Port Sydney municipal water supply, require a 30-meter interior side yard setback abutting the northeast most lot line, and a 30-meter interior side yard setback abutting the portion of the westerly most lot line, as well as the retention of existing natural vegetation within these setbacks. Finally, require an engineered drainage plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the town of Huntsville prior to the building permit being issued on the lot. Any final comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right, thanks, Curtis. So that ends the public input portion of the meeting. Now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. We'll now move to the non-public portion of the meeting to deal with the consent applications. If the applicant or their agent wishes to make comments regarding their application, please raise your hand after the presentation. All right, and Curtis, you're going to speak to the Nelson application.
Wonderful, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Stone. The subject property is located at 93 Burnell Road. The lot is designated residential within an intensification corridor and zoned residential 1. Purpose and effect of this application is to create one new residential lot with an area of approximately 1,011 meters squared and 15 meters of frontage on Brunel Road. The retained lot would have an area of approximately 1,375 meters squared and 20 meters of frontage on Brunel Road. On September 15th, 2020, Planning Committee approved zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-2020, changing the zoning on this lot from a residential 1 zone to a residential 2 zone, with an exception to require a 40-meter rear yard setback, as well as the retention of natural vegetation within that setback. Prior to the approval of the subsequent consent by the Director of Development Services, a letter of objection was received, raising concerns related to erosion, the removal of existing vegetation, the addition of a new driveway on Brunel Road, and a request to limit the hours in which development could occur. As the authority delegated to staff to approve consent applications is limited to instances where no objections have been received, this application is now before committee for consideration. Upon review of the concerns raised in the letter of objection, it should be noted that the necessary provisions were included in the zoning bylaw amendment application to protect the steep slopes at the rear of the lot. Further, a dwelling can be constructed on the lot that meets all applicable setback requirements of the zoning bylaw, and the entrance location has been reviewed by district staff and deemed to comply with their policies. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. We will just take a second and ask if the applicant or agent has comments that we haven't heard already.
Chair Stone, I do see one hand raised.
Then please bring them in. Mr. Dennis.
Morning, Councillor Stone, Committee, Lenny Dennis, Wayne Simpson and Associates. I think that's a fairly good assessment of the proposal. Appreciate the efforts of staff and working with them. Concur with the Planning Department to approve the application. We have no issues with respect to the conditions. The Council, probably if some of you are aware, have already approved the zoning bylaw that would facilitate the creation of this new lot. It's in an ideal infilling situation to increase the density. It's in an area set aside by the town for this to happen. The rear yard setback was increased to place development more appropriately closer to the front of the property and off the steep slope and to protect the steep slope. I met with the District Public Works staff on site, and there wasn't an issue with respect to the entrance. And of course, there is a condition in the decision. So I think we've addressed all the issues and would respectfully request committee approve the application. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And if you can just stay with us, and I'll ask committee if there's any comments or questions. All right, I'll read the motion. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B28-2020 HTE for the creation of a new residential lot. Conditional on 1, registerable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing. A site inspection fee of $230 being paid to the town of Huntsville. A consent finalization fee in the amount of $175 being paid to the town of Huntsville. 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands. The lands being rezoned for their intended use. A 3-meter road widening across the frontage of the retained lands dedicated to the district municipality of Muskoka for road widening purposes. And finally, written confirmation be provided from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit can be issued for the proposed severed lot for access to the district road. Final comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Lanny.
Thank you, Chair Stone, members of committee.
Thanks, Curtis. I think Jasmine's going to speak to the Martin application.
Thank you. The subject property is located at 1680 Ravenscliff Road. The lot is designated rural and zoned rural 1 with an exception to reduce the minimum required lot frontage. The purpose and effect of the application is to create one new rural residential lot. The retained lot would have an area of 20 hectares with 122 meters of frontage on Ravenscliff Road, while the severed lot would have an area of approximately 4 hectares and 122 meters of frontage on Ravenscliff Road. The proposed lot would front onto a year-round maintained road and is located in an area of existing rural residential development with access to community facilities and public services, in keeping with Section C 8.7.3 of the official plan. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. There were no objections received from members of the public. However, district staff have recommended that the application not be approved, as it would result in the creation of new lots with deficient road frontage. Although the severed and retained lots do not meet the minimum required frontages of the town and district official plans, a zoning amendment was approved by council in July of this year, permitting a minimum frontage of 115 meters. Section 24.4 of the Planning Act states that where council has passed a zoning bylaw and there are no appeals, the bylaw is deemed to conform to the official plan. As such, the application appears to conform to the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. Does the applicant or agent wish to speak to this?
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 if connected by phone to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I'm seeing no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Jasmine, before I go to committee, Jasmine, the 122 meters frontage, the district doesn't think that's enough?
No, their official plan requires 150 meters for this type of road. So they did object with the previous zoning amendment application and cited the same concerns. The town's official plan would have a minimum requirement of 134 meters. But again, because council has passed a zoning bylaw permitting a reduced frontage, staff feel that the bylaw now conforms to the official plan. And so we do recommend approval at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? I'll go to Kenneth Donald first.
Just through you, Chair Stone, just to follow up to that comment. If town has changed the bylaw, and I recognize that this is a district road, is the objection from the district purely a technical objection, or is this something that they have legitimate concern about?
I believe it's, I don't know if I could call it a technical objection. I'm sorry, through you, Chair Stone. Their concerns are related to the number of entrances on the district road, I believe. In this case, they did add some conditions that we would include in the approval to deal with the entrance permit, as well as things like the location of wells in location to the district road. So there are items that can be addressed through the approval, but we did have numerous discussions with district staff, and they said based solely on the official plan policy, they don't meet the 150 meter requirement, so they have to recommend that it not be approved.
Thanks very much. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I have to agree with Jasmine on her recommendation, and the district has covered it off with 3 conditions, which I think may or may not be satisfied, but I like this, so I'm in favor of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Helena Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I think my concern was similar to what Kenneth Donald said. Is this not a formality, but it's the first time it's come across our desk or my desk to say that the district is not approving of it. but it is a technicality or they're following the Muskoka, the official plan. The one question that I have, and perhaps Jasmine could ask this if I may, on the one of the drawings, it was on page 62, it does say that, interestingly, it says 500 feet for one existing lot line or lot, and then the other one is 122 meters. Is that typical? Why would they have meters on one and feet on the other? Is that typical?
Right. Yeah. So through you, Chair Stone, the sketch was done by the applicant, so I'm
I
not
see.
certain why they switched from feet to meters.
Okay. I thought
Maybe it's just they are showing existing lots, so it's not part of this application, the one that's labeled 500 meters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feet.
Sometimes we do see people switch between them. So yeah.
Okay. I thought it was an official paper, but it's okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, seeing no more questions, I will read the resolution. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be resolved that the Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B34-2020 HTE for the creation of one rural lot, conditional on a registerable description of the severed lot being submitted to the clerk, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing, a site inspection fee of $230 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $175 being paid to the town of Huntsville, 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands, the applicant to obtain written confirmation from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit for the severed and retained lots can be issued for access onto District Road, a 3-meter road widening across the frontage of the severed and retained lots being dedicated to the District Municipality of Muskoka for road widening purposes, and the lands being subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the District Road. Any other final comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Jasmine.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our business here. So moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 9:38 a.m. All in favor? Awesome, that's carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody.